You ever meet an overachiever, somebody who performs at a complete different level, and immediately you feel their presence? You know what I'm talking about? You're like, why is he thinking that way? Why is he wired that way? Why is his energy this way? Why does he think this way? Man, this dude is weird, right? Okay. Anyone you ever meet that competes at a whole different level, they generally, in their imagination, they have multiple personalities that they either view themselves at or people from other spaces and industries that they respect and admire that gets them to be wired the way they are. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. A lot of people ask me and they say, Pat, you know, you think different, you say things, and there's a lot of guys online, but when you talk, it comes from a different, what do you, like, who do you admire? Who do you look up to? How do you get your inspiration yourself? And I said, that is such a great question. I chose to, again, turn it into another episode. Believe it or not, you guys may call all my episodes. And I said 5 identities of an entrepreneur. Okay, and I'll explain to you exactly what I mean by that. The first one, when I chose to compete at a high level, I was a regular entrepreneur doing nothing, just a regular chump entrepreneur that thought he was so special. And 1 month I made some money and I thought I was on top of the world, and I went to Vegas, gambled. So it was boom, 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 boom. I thought entrepreneurship was about the girls partying, Vegas, nightclub, all this stuff. And you go with your friends and open up, hey, bar, drinking. Nope, I wanted to compete. I really wanted to go to a whole different level. So one day I had a timeout. And I said, Pat, you've chosen this industry, yes. What are the mindsets of other professionals in different worlds do you want to emulate? And I wrote down the 5. And let me tell you exactly what the 5 were. Number 1 was an athlete. Number 1 was an athlete. I always grew up respecting athletes. I grew up watching Magic. I grew up watching Jordan. I grew up watching Juan Gonzalez, okay, who played for the Rangers, 2-time MVP, 46 home runs. He almost broke Hack Wilson's record one time for RBIs. I grew up watching Kobe. I grew up watching Van Exel. I grew up watching Sergei Fedorov, Jaromir Jagr, Mario Lemieux, Rob Lake, Marty McSorley, Gretzky. I grew up watching these guys, and I grew up admiring these competitors, right? Frank Thomas, Bonds. It was just McGuire. It was fascinating. I was in the Army. I remember McGuire and Sammy Sosa went for the home run record in 1998. We were in the military going nuts, staying up till late at night just to see, boom, when they were doing their things. I have the paper till today when McGuire and Sosa broke the record. So I always respected athletes. And I said, so Pat, why do you respect athletes? I have a few points here on why every entrepreneur should learn these things from athletes. I have 6 points for you. First one was this. It was work ethic. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by work ethic. For me, work ethic goes to baseball. And I'll tell you why baseball. I looked at Cal Ripken Jr. as somebody every entrepreneur needs to emulate. Cal Ripken Jr. was a baseball player who played for Baltimore Orioles, number 8. He didn't hit the most home runs. He did 200 home runs, 18 home runs, things like that, 82 RBIs. He was a good player, but he was a leader. There was something about the guy that was a leader. He was a locker room guy. He was a guy that you want representing your brand. He was a face of a company. He was a face of Major League Baseball. Great face for that. I'll tell you why. This guy played. He broke a record that probably, I don't know if it's going to be broken for a long time to come. 56-year record in Major League Baseball of Lou Gehrig, who played for the Yankees. Lou Gehrig played 2,130 games in a row without missing a single game. Let me tell you exactly why that's so important. Every year in baseball, they play 162 games per year. They play 81 at home. So let's just say if I'm playing for the Texas Rangers, 81 is in Texas, 81 is not in Texas. Now think about that. 81 home, 81 on the road. Because that means I'm traveling all the time, going to different cities, staying at hotels, all these sorts of things, right? Out of the 162 games, we're not including preseason, we're not including playoffs. So if you go into playoffs, you could play 16 more games or 20 more games or however many, depending on how deep you go into playoffs, or preseason practice. And it doesn't include off-season, right? Lou Gehrig, 56 years, record stands. The guy plays 2,130 games in a row. Cal Ripken Jr. breaks that record. He does 2,131 games. The game he breaks the record, Bill Clinton comes to recognize him because Bill Clinton, the president, cannot believe how an athlete plays 2,131 games. The entire stadium lights the place up. The players push him out and say, dude, go out there. The fans want to shake your hands. He's so humble. He doesn't want to come out. It's like, go out there. He goes out. You just go and put his hand up and do one of these things. He notices, no, everybody wants to shake his hands. Like, I'm getting the chills on my arms here. Everybody wants to shake his hand. And he goes around, he's just high-fiving. He's like, no, everyone wants his arm is out. Just pay attention to this scene real quick. Watch this 20-second scene here.
So they physically grabbed me at one point, threw me out there. And when the first part of that lap, I started to look over and I said, okay, I'll just do it real quick. But after one handshake, two handshakes, two looks in the face, all of a sudden it became, a whole lot more intimate of a celebration. It became one-on-one. It didn't matter how long the delay was going to be anymore. It just seemed like I'm going to enjoy this.
A moment that will live for 2,131 years. We will never see anything.
How powerful is that? Everybody wants to shake this guy's hands, and he comes back, and everyone's flabbergasted. Listen, there's a part of the story most people don't know. He was married during that time. Him and his wife had 3 kids, and on one of the pregnancies, his wife is in a hospital who's in labor, in the hospital, in labor, while he's playing baseball. And in baseball, you got to play 5 innings for it to count as a game. His wife said, go to the game. Go to the game. She supported the record. He goes to the game. Everybody in the stands knows his wife's in the hospital. Everybody's clapping. And then when 5th inning comes, he runs out. Everyone's in tears, emotional. He goes and his baby's born. The entire family, the entire Major League Baseball knew and wanted this guy to win. By the way, he ended up playing 2,600, I believe, 32 games. That's 16 years. They didn't miss a single game. I had a conversation with one of the entrepreneurs on Monday. He and I spoke on the phone for 45 minutes, and they decided to take a day off on Memorial Day on certain things. It's, we did this, and and I said, you took a day off on the last year. This is close. You're in sales. You're an entrepreneur. Your business. What do you mean taking? He says, well, we totally messed up. We totally screwed up. Man, I'm so upset with myself. I love this energy because he at least came from a place of saying, I want to hire myself instead of saying, well, I can do whatever I want to do. You can't tell me what to do. He came from a place of, I want to raise my game. Now, why? Why? Let me get to my next point. Next point on why that was so important, on why I wanted to look and think, perform like an athlete. Athletes always play on days everyone takes a day off. Athletes play on Christmas Day. See, on Christmas Day, everyone's home, opening up gifts, all this other stuff. Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, all these guys, they're playing on Christmas Day. While everyone's at home with their kids, they're performing on a day because they're players, everyone's fans at home, they're performing. Memorial Day, it's Memorial Day, barbecue. People forget what really Memorial Day is all about. Memorial Day isn't for you to have a barbecue. Memorial Day is much bigger than that. But on Memorial, it's so great. 4-day weekend, it's so great. I hate my job. Really? No. Memorial Day, baseball players play on Memorial Day. Basketball players play on Memorial Day. It's sports, okay? 4th of July, they play. New Year's, Thanksgiving, baseball, Turkey Bowl, Cowboys, Redskins, Detroit, these teams that play, they play. Philly, they play. This is tradition, they play. I love the mindset of an athlete because athletes play on the days that average employees and regular people want to take those days off. I don't want to be this spectator. That's why as an entrepreneur, I don't want to be the guy that just wants to take those days off. I don't want to do that. Everyone can. I'm not judging anybody who does. I refuse to do that because it's not my standards. I chose to change it up at 23, 24, 25 years old. Next one, staying in shape. Athletes have to stay in shape. You don't stay in shape, you lose. Why do you need to stay in shape? It's a competitive environment. Everybody wants your position. You think you're playing good? Well, guess what? You put on weight, you're out. Bynum, you think you're a big shot? You're out. All these guys that come in the league and they put on weight, you're out. All the time, so many athletes have come, put on weight, they're done. In every single sport, so you got to stay in shape as an entrepreneur. Practice is very big as an athlete. You got to practice. If you don't, you lose your edge. You got to do your shots. Whatever it is, it's constant practice. The other one is interviews. I'm more interested in interviews than the actual game, believe it or not. Like, you will see me, on my phone at 11:30 at night watching the interviews of what an athlete says or what somebody says. I want to watch a 90-second interview. I want to watch a 2-minute interview. I want to watch a 3-minute interview. That's what I'm interested in because I want to know how they handle the loss, how they handle the victory, how they handle somebody talking smack about them. I I want to see how they communicate with their competitors, how they took it from the coach challenging them and the players saying, well, coach is right, we need to step up and we didn't follow the game plan that the coaches put in place, and how the coaches defend the players or take the heat, or sometimes the great coaches like Phil Jackson calls out Jordan, calls out Kobe, and they see how they respond. And then I want to see the interviews because I see how their mindset is, the athlete. Then the next one is a competitor. I mean, I love the fire of a competitor. You look at competition, sports, Curry, Jordan, Westbrook, Kobe, the guy who plays for Washington Nationals, Harper, man, the guy's got some fire in him. Odor, Batista, that whole punch with the Odor hit Batista in the face after the slide. I mean, there's something about that competitive nature that you gotta love. I love that guy who's the UFC guy. Who is the UFC guy that the guy that from UK? He's an incredible fighter. You know who I'm talking about? He was on cover of Sports Illustrated. I'm fascinated by competitors. I am fascinated by Ali. I am fascinated by these guys. And I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you need a source of inspiration. Go watch a video with Jordan and the Knicks. Just put Michael Jordan Knicks. It's a 4-minute video. I guarantee you'll be inspired. Go type in Coach Mike Ditka interview. Look at all the times on how he talks smack. You'll get fired up on these guys on how bad they wanted to compete. So number one identity to me is athlete. Let's talk about the second identity. Second identity to me on how I treated my business as an entrepreneur was being a head coach. How do head coaches think? And I'll tell you exactly what I meant head coach, because I looked at a head coach that had to learn a few different things when building a team. Conflicts when nobody gets along with each other on the team. You got to create unison, alignments, people willing to be coachable, being willing to ask people to leave the team. How do you do that? Being willing to recruit other people to your team. How do you do that? Selling the possibility of us doing it. How do you challenge your players? How do you get people to rise up? How do you put somebody on the bench and see how they're going to respond? How do you realize one guy's just not a lead guy? You keep trying to get this guy to be the captain of the team. He's not a captain type of guy. He just wants to be left alone and play. There was a time where Lamar Odom was playing for the Lakers. As a starter, he hated being a starter. He just wanted to be a six-man. Finally, he just said, let me be a six-man. He became a six-man, and they won a championship. Steve Kerr comes to Golden State Warriors. He has a guy named Andre Iguodala who's always been a starter, averaging 23, 24 points a game. Steve says, you got to sit on the bench. Out of your mind? I've always started. You're sitting on the bench. Goes, sits on the bench, becomes the MVP of the finals, going against Cleveland Cavaliers, guarding the great LeBron James. That's coaching. Steve Kerr's a great coach. Joe Torre. You look at some of these guys when you watch coaches. When you look at Phil, when you look at all these other guys, you're learning on how they're coaching. You're learning on how they're injecting beliefs, strategies, calming people down when needed. It's okay. You've been playing this game all your life. You know what you're doing. Quit fooling yourself and making it a bigger deal. You play basketball since 6 years old. It's the same game. It's all right. Go pull it off. You can do this. Expectations, standards, building leaders. I wanted to think like a coach, so I watched great coaches on how they led their business, and I brought that into my business as an entrepreneur. The next one was a CEO. And I know you're like, well, isn't an entrepreneur CEO? Not necessarily. An entrepreneur, you may start off as somebody that's an independent contractor selling something. But I wanted to think like a CEO. A lot of people are so proud to be a CEO and title. Anyone can be called a CEO. Anybody. You can call yourself whatever you want. I mean, you can go on YouTube right now and call yourself a business guru, and there's no regulations against it. You can do that. You can go online right now and talk about a millionaire coach. I mean, there's so many people calling a millionaire coach. They're barely making $36,000 a year, but they're millionaire coaches, right? You can do that. You can get away with that. But I wanted to know real CEOs, okay? I wanted to know how they thought. I wanted to know how Bezos, how Ellison, Larry Ellison from Oracle, whose company in the 90s, in the 80s, did 100% every single year for 10 years. Larry Ellison, who's worth 49 billion bucks, CEO and founder of Oracle. Why CEO? Because vision. What's next move? What's our next audible? Finance, money. Can we afford it? Can we not afford it? Leadership, responsibility, taking the heat. CEO, if good things happens, you got to give credit away. If bad things happen, it's your fault. When the CEO, Apple was going down, it's always Steve Jobs. Okay. Good things happen. Well, it's not really Steve Jobs that came up with the iPhone. It doesn't matter. It always goes that way, right? So accountability. Accountability comes with CEO. Day to day with no breaks. You're not a CEO only 5 days a week. You're a CEO 7 days a week. I wanted to be and think like that. Even when I was somebody who was in my third, fourth year, not do the act, but just think like a CEO. I don't need to do the activities of, quarterly call, investors calls. No, I want to think. I want to have the mindset of that CEO, right? Next one. This one's going to sound, the next two are going to sound a little strange to you, okay? Fourth identity was a leader of a nation. Let me tell you what I mean by leader of a nation. I always wanted to think, okay, if you're running a country, how would you lead this country? Now, why a leader of a nation? Why would you want to think like a leader of a nation? Isn't that kind of egotistical? Like, who do you think you are? You think you're going to be a president? You think, you think you're you think you're a governor? You think you're like a prime? Who do you think you are, man? You're just what leader of a nation? Let me explain to you why I think an entrepreneur building a company ought to be thinking like a leader of a nation. Because your values and principles that you speak and do, if your values and principles that you talk about are aligned with your behavior, everybody else replicates it. If your values and principles that you talk about are not aligned with your behavior, everyone laughs behind your back. They just don't tell you about it in your face. Let me say that one more time. The values and principles of a leader of a nation, if it's aligned with his behavior, everyone replicates. If it's not, you become a laughing stock and you're on SNL every week, is what you are, okay? The other part about a leader of a nation was speaking with enemy. How do you communicate with an enemy? How do you handle an enemy? How do you handle somebody that hates you? How do you handle somebody that wants to build an alliance at another as another nation? How do you build that alliance with them, right? How do you partner up with another nation that's got things going on that they can give you oil, you can give them crop, you can give them, there's a certain trade going on. How do you handle that, right? System of economical system. This may sound like, what do you mean economical system? Because doesn't an entrepreneur automatically be a capitalist? You'd be amazed how many entrepreneurs actually run their business like a communist. You'd be amazed how many entrepreneurs run their business like a socialist. Let me explain to you what it means. When they do very well, it's all, we did it together. It was so great. We did it. It was all we. But then nobody gets individual recognition, right? It's all we only. So the guy that pushed a little harder, he doesn't get recognition. So as America, I think today, we're a lot about only we. I don't know how much we're recognizing innovators. I don't know how much we're recognizing the individuals that are doing more than the majority. I think we need to recognize the individual. Like in basketball, they have MVP, playoff MVP, rookie of the year, all this stuff. The team wins a championship, but who's the playoff MVP? Who's the championship MVP? Who's the rookie of the year? We need to have the individual accolades. So as a leader of a nation, do you also recognize individual? Do you run a recognition economical system that's more of a capitalistic recognition? Is it socialism, everybody's great, or is it communism, no one can do more than the other person? Everyone needs to be treated equally. There's a big difference between treated fairly and equally. And when you're running a nation, you may say one thing, but your behavior could be completely contradicting the way that you believe it should be ran. You'll know a lot about how you run your country, your nation, your business. Pride, there's a lot of pride in your nation. How you deliver your message during good and bad times. Everybody's watching. You're on camera all the time. What's he going to say about what just happened? What's he going to say about this person? What's he going to say about that? Everybody's watching you. Oh, shoot, look what's leader of a nation. Oh, my God, did you see what happened? What's he going to say here, right? And then your example, then trust and transparency. This is all part of being an entrepreneur that creates a big following. I'll tell you the last one here. The last one here is going to sound strange as well. The last one is on where I got my inspiration was thinking about somebody who is about to lose everything. Somebody who is being chased by somebody. Now, where did that feeling and emotion come from for me? When I lived in Iran and there was always that fear of being attacked by Saddam and all this other stuff by Iraq, I lived there 10 years and it created this, someone's after us. And so what emotion does that create? It created being alert. I think if you don't think someone's after you, you don't have your guards up and you're not ready and you're not alert. I think when 9/11 happened to America, a big part of it was because we were not alert, we were not ready, we were not expecting it, we were not fully prepared to protect our nation and the World Trade Center and all this other stuff. And then boom, an event like that took place because we were not alert. Oh, it's never going to happen to America. Oh, it's never going to happen to us. Why would it ever happen to America? And then boom, we're shocked. America. I mean, this is United States of America that this takes place to. I mean, I remember where I was at. I was working at World Trade Center, and our headquarters was in World Trade Center. I was working in Glendale, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, and the Morgan Stanley headquarters was at the World Trade Center. I remember that. I remember those days. Maybe we were not alert enough. You know, maybe you're doing so well in the business and you all of a sudden you become so comfortable and you lose everything. What happened? You were not alert. You didn't catch that coming. And another person couldn't wait to take your lunch. And if you think that's not how it is in business, you're fooling yourself. That alertness, somebody could come after you, could come and take everything you got. And you better believe the same's got to go with your family. Now, I understand faith and trusting and positive thinking and all that other stuff, but as much positive thinking I want to have in faith, if I don't have my guards up when I'm fighting you and you catch me, boom, I'm gone. I can believe in faith and anything. I'm knocked out believing in faith. Makes sense. You got to be also doing your part. You know, you got to be doing your part as well. So when you're thinking about someone who's after you and someone who's about to lose everything, this keeps me in the game more instead of me being comfortable. It keeps a healthy amount of paranoia. It gets me to be improving. I am more alert. I'm more aware. You know, I watched a video the other day by a guy named Dr. Something. Let me see if I have this picture here. This guy who was in Spain, okay? And I may be completely telling you the story, Omega Institute. This is a guy named Dr. Dan Siegel, okay? He told this story where he said when he was in Spain, he was riding a horse and he falls off a horse on the bottom and the horse drags him. And he loses all his teeth, everything. He loses all his teeth, everything he loses, every single thing, broken face, arm, everything, okay? And then they get him and he comes back up and he's alert. But for 24 hours when he's alert, he doesn't remember his own identity. Where am I going with this? Let me explain to you where I'm going with this. He doesn't remember that he's white. We think where we say I'm Middle Eastern, I'm white, all this other stuff. What if we didn't know what Middle Eastern was? He doesn't know he's white. He doesn't know he wears glasses. He doesn't know what bald is. He's bald. He doesn't know how old he is because you don't know. He says, when I came back, I couldn't believe my identity was so clean slate. I had no fears. I had nothing going on. I had all this stuff that I was pretty good. I was clear. I was clean. I was all this other stuff. Now, why am I telling you this story right now? I think because you and I can choose to create whatever identity we want to create for ourselves. And you can allow the world to create an identity for you. But at any point, you can drop your bad habits and replace them with good ones. You can drop your low standards and replace it with high standards. You can go from being a lazy person and become a hustler if you choose to. A lot of people this morning, we had a conference call with a group of guys I was coaching. I said, you know, I believe everybody can change, but it's so strange. Only if you do. Only if you do, positively. Only if you do. Why? It takes work, it takes effort, it takes discipline, it takes day to day. So for me, if you truly want to compete at the highest level, you got to be thinking about like an athlete. Think like an athlete. You got to think like a head coach to build leaders around you. You got to think like a CEO. You got to think like a leader of a nation that casts a vision, builds the right values and principles, keeps people together. And you got to think like somebody who's about to lose everything to keep you in and keep you alert and keep you on edge and keep you going in a way that you're going to a whole different level when everybody else is thinking you can't get to that point. You can. And if you do so, you'll perform at a whole different level. Your competitors will treat you and respect you in a completely different way. The people that are working with you will follow you in a whole different way. And talent around the world who wants to work with you will call you endlessly to say, how do I work with you on a daily basis? I just want to be in business with you. Just like all these other guys that are recruiting people, and we're getting hundreds of calls and messages saying, what can we do to be part of this group that you're building, and what can we do to be part of the when you go in at that level and you're wired at that level, you're competing at that level, some strange things happen. So that's my challenge to you, on to be thinking about those 5 identities. You may want to watch this video again. Elliot, why don't you throw me my favorite pillow here? We need your help, guys. We need your help. We had our biggest subscription day last week. In one day, we had 660 subscribers. We need to get to 100,000 subs by August 31st, and we need your help. Lots of you comment every single video saying, we love this YouTube channel. Awesome. How do I pay back? Help us get to 100,000 subs by August 31st, 100,000 subscribers by August 31st. I think while you're watching this, if you look at the bottom, the number, I think we're at 42,000 subscribers as of today. Maybe by the time you watch it, we're at something else, but as of today, we're at 42,000 subscribers. Help us get as many entrepreneurs subscribing to this channel as possible. And so if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click on the bottom right here. Give us a sub. If you haven't yet, there you go. Thank you. And if you're watching this video on a completely different website, you can always come back to patrickbaydavid.com. There you go, patrickbaydavid.com, and you'll have a lot more resources there and videos to follow and watch. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.